This is Studio Talk, and I'm Barry Johns. And today we're going to talk about, we're halfway through 2023, and the question I have for all of you today, and for myself, quite frankly, is an Apollo a good buy in 2023? Before we dig into that, let me kind of say this first. Whatever I say from my perspective, please understand this is just my opinion. We all have an opinion. We all have our thought processes that we go through when we're trying to decide on a piece of gear and whether or not it's going to be a good investment of the money that we have worked so hard to make. And so consider that as we go through this. And so if you think about what Universal Audio has been doing recently, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a huge fan. I think that the fact that they now offer native versions of their plugins, I think that's absolutely incredible. I think the fact that they offer both a subscription as well as the ability to buy the plugins and own them, I think those are some great, compelling options. I think the fact that most people would say that when their subscription plan first came out, there wasn't as much value in it as, so let's say, for example, others like, Brainworks, and some of the other subscription platforms, whether it be Slate Digital, which is now owned by SSL, and the others out there that do subscription. You tended to get a lot more plugins for the price, but I would always argue that I would rather have a small collection of really great plugins versus a large collection of plugins that I'm most likely never going to use. Now, another thing that probably rubs people the wrong way, and I don't agree with you for the record, I think you're dead wrong when you have this opinion. Some people are complaining the fact that it's taking a very long time to roll out their plugins into the native format. Well, I think many of you who view it that way have probably never run any kind of a business. I need you all to understand Universal Audio is a small company with a really big name and a really big reputation, but at the end of the day, they're still a small company, and doing those plugins is not the only thing that they're working on. So I have personally been very satisfied with the way they've been rolling out their native plugins so far. Now, you say, Barry, why are you talking so much about their native plugins? I thought we were going to talk about the fact today is buying an Apollo in 2023, especially now that we're kind of halfway through the year, greater than halfway through the year. Does that make sense? Is that something I should invest my money in? Well, I think you can't really have that discussion, in my opinion, or at least the way I look at it, without considering the fact that these plugins were native. You have to first look at what made the Apollo so compelling. And I'm going to have to be honest with you. I think when they first came out with the Apollo series, it was groundbreaking for its time. It was really taking on the likes of Avid and their HDX cards and being able to record with no latency through some fantastic plugins and really be able to record at any stage of the process and recording without effort, okay? No problems whatsoever. It's one of the compelling reasons that both of those platforms have been so revered for so long. Now, that said, when Universal Audio adopted this way of working and incorporating the ability to track through their plugins, because if you remember correctly, they didn't start out by doing. They started out with the UAD1, which their plugins would run on that PCI card back in the day. And then they came out with the UAD2 and offered you more DSP power, and obviously the PCIe format, and then they incorporated their satellites and things like that. A lot of that had been in the works before they came out with the Apollo series. So it's always been about the very core and the foundation of what makes them so compelling is the quality of their plugins. And so when all of this was unveiling itself, they truly did dominate the digital audio world when it came to plugins as far as quality, getting closer to their analog equivalents than anybody out there was able to do. So they dominated that without question. I own several of the first UAD1 cards and then a couple of UAD2 cards and so forth. And so they were always quite compelling. And back then, plugins and the like all of them were a lot more expensive than they are today. Today, you can pick up some good plugins for less than $50. And so there's a lot of value to be had out there today, but that wasn't the case when the Apollo series and the UAD series came out. So today we've advanced a long way in technology. I mean, a long way. And it's only getting faster and faster and faster, what seems to me at a much more rapid pace. Today, if you have, a solidly built, properly spec'd Windows machine or an Apple Silicon-based computer, you've got a tremendous amount of computing power within your reach, and not quite frankly, not nearly as expensive as it used to be. It's actually come down in price for those of us who've actually, I probably built 10 or 12 PCs for myself over the decades, and I've owned just about every Mac out there. I'm a fan of both platforms, although today I primarily use Mac, but it's not because I think it's better or anything like that. It's just what I'm most comfortable with. And in the world of audio, I tend to find more compatibility with Mac than I do with Windows, although that has shrunk tremendously. So, you have to ask yourself, what is really compelling today about an Apollo? Now, I can only tell you my personal experiences with my M1 Pro MacBook Pro, and the Apple Silicon kind of changed the game for me quite a bit, because before that, I had a 12-core Intel Mac, and I thought it was very powerful. But then to me, the Apple Silicon came out and it just blew that computer out of the water. Now, I've got various videos out there demonstrating the power of various Apple Silicon-based computers and demonstrating where I'm literally running hundreds, if not thousands of tracks with 10 plugins per track, all at a low buffer of either 64 or 32 while tracking for 4 solid minutes. No problem, no latency. So I think those of you who feel like you need that DSP today, I think you really have to ask yourself, do you really? Do you really? When's the last time you tested the waters? Are you using, as an example, an Apollo on an outdated machine? And so, yes, with that current computer, you definitely probably need the DSP that the Apollo is providing you. But you have to ask yourself, would it be smarter for me to invest in updating my computer versus buying any type of device? And this holds true whether it's an HDX type system or whether it's Antelope Audio has some DSP built into. There's a lot of manufacturers, but probably the two biggest are Universal Audio Apollo series as well as HDX / the Carbon unit that Avid has out. And so I think you have to ask yourself, do you really need those things today? And where should you spend your money on? Now, I'm still surprised, to be honest with you. I'm very surprised because I did make a prediction that Universal Audio would come out with an updated Apollo earlier this year. And obviously I got that wrong. And so I'm still trying to wrap my head around that because it doesn't make sense, especially considering everything else they're doing now. I think they're coming to realize that the days of needing dedicated DSP are coming to an end. So you have to ask yourself, what are the benefits today? If I have a properly spec'd out computer, what benefits do I have today of operating Apollo with the built-in DSP? So let's talk about that. So I think I've made it clear to you that you can track just about at any stage in the vast majority of situations. I'm not going to say all, but the vast majority of situations without dealing with latency if you have a powerful computer today that will not cost you an arm and a leg, okay? So now, understanding that, let's say you have that. Why would you want to have any type of DSP-based unit, whether it be Apollo or let's say a Carbon? Why would you want to do that? Well, a lot of people say, I like to track through my UAD plugins. Okay, all right, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not committing those plugins. I personally think you got to be out of your freaking mind to commit a plugin to what I'm used to calling tape when you can simply get the exact same results if you apply that plugin in post. In other words, after the recording. So the only reason I can see doing that is if you have limited DSP and you need to capture as much as possible. Now you may say, Barry, I hear you talk on your channel all the time how you track through analog hardware back there, whether it be compressors and the like. And I do that. And I do that almost on everything that ultimately is going to have a compressor on it, as an example. But when I'm coming on the way in, I'm just barely doing it. I'm not fully committing. I'm just kind of rounding that off, softening that up at the top. If I'm going to do any kind of serious compression, that's going to happen almost pretty much by a plugin or using a hardware insert after I've recorded it. So, so to me, there's no advantage to doing that. Now, how many plugins do you honestly need to track through? I would argue that having Universal Audio's 1176 and their LA2A is all you need. You don't need anything else to track through. You just simply don't need it. If you're doing it to get a good sound in your cans, to make everyone feel comfortable, get an idea of where things are going, how the song may develop, that's really all you need. That's it. And so you can get those in native versions. So no need for the Apollo series or the DSP based upon that. You can also run those plugins in native after the fact, not eating up the DSP in your Apollo. Okay. So from my opinion, no, it's not worth it for that. Now, a lot of people swear by the Unison preamps that are built into the Apollo. I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of that's placebo. I think they do a good job of emulating some nice, well-known microphone preamps, but it is not the same. I don't care what their advertising says, and I'll be honest with you, I don't care what you've made yourself believe. No. Now, is it a better option for you than not having it? Probably. So if it's worth it for you to buy an Apollo for, it's hard to find the right word because I don't want to undersell it because there is value to it, but you have to ask yourself, is the limited improvement that you're getting better spent on that? Because most of you are probably sitting home recording no more than 2 tracks at a time. So why not invest in a couple of super great Neve clones or something? I've done videos on quite a few really good ones out there and go that route versus the emulation because you're going to get more value out of other parts of your recording than you are that. So these are things I think you should consider. So now that we've kind of checked the box, do I really need to track through DSP today? No, not if you have a decently spec'd out computer that won't cost you an arm and a leg. Is the benefit of having the Unison pre's, does it justify the additional expense of the Apollo? Only you can answer that question. Okay. Lastly, how does a conversion batch up compared to other boxes within its price range? Okay. Now, we can all find better conversion. The more money you spend, the better you're more likely going to get. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think the differences are subtle at best in most situations for most people. And I don't think most people can, quite frankly, even recognize that the difference is that much. Now, I personally feel like the conversion, although has gotten better on the Apollo series from its first introduction, it is still not on par with other boxes within its price range. I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's certainly not winning that. Let me just say it that way. It's not, in other words, I would never buy an Apollo because it's got amazing conversion in it. No, if I'm buying an Apollo, I'm buying it because I feel like I need the DSP, and that's really my motivation. That's it. That's the only reason I'm doing it. And so now that you kind of got that out of the way, so if I was looking for DSP and great conversion, I think all of you who watch my channel know I can't stand Avid as a company, but I do like their products, okay? The Avid Carbon, blows anything that the Apollo can do away. The conversion is far superior in the Apollo, far superior. And the options that you have for DSP-based plugins are much greater in that environment over there. And so if I felt like I had to have DSP, I would absolutely go with the Carbon. No question about it in my mind. If I needed more mic pre's, I would either add an external 8-channel mic preamp via ADAT, or you could also buy their 8-channel mic preamp that, in my opinion, that goes with the Apollo. Not the Apollo, I'm sorry, the Carbon. But I think it's grossly overpriced from my opinion, but that's just me. But I will tell you, the preamps in the Carbon are some of the best I've ever heard on any interface in that price range, okay? Simply just outstanding. I'm not saying they're the best. I'm just saying they're the best I've heard. So I think you've got to ask yourself these questions. Does it make sense? If it's me, no, it doesn't make sense. I wouldn't do it because I don't think it offers me anything that I can't get in other boxes that are out there that offer more features, better stability, more universal adaptable, whether you're going between Windows and Mac. Everybody knows that Universal Audio basically is not a great option for Windows users. Okay, it's hit or miss at best, and it's mostly miss. And so for those of you who've got a great working system, you need to understand you're kind of on a desert island. And I've done a video on this, and all you got to do is go find that video and read through the comments, and you're going to find that you're on a desert island. I'm happy that it's working for you, but that's just not the case for everybody else. So when I say that I wouldn't buy an Apollo today, it's not a dig towards Universal Audio. I think they make fantastic products. I just think that that box is long in the tooth and it needs an update. It seriously needs an update. It's been far too long since we've seen any kind of meaningful update to those boxes, all right? And so that's just my 2 cents. Now, you may perfectly disagree with me, and that is more than fine. More than fine. As I stated in the beginning of this video, this is simply just my opinion. So if you do like the things I talk about on this channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the channel, and I will continue to grow. Otherwise, leave me some comments down below. Tell me what your thoughts are on this subject, what kind of questions that you may have. Believe it or not, a lot of the content that I do that is opinion-based comes from viewers asking questions. And so when I get a lot of the same question, as I did with this one, I've probably gotten well over 60 or 70 emails or comments throughout my videos asking me that very question, would I buy an Apollo in 2023? And so now you know. Now you know. So whatever choices you make, have fun doing it. And at the end of the day, just understand there are really no wrong choices when you're looking at these types of things, right? Certainly not in this type of thing. You certainly cannot go wrong if you do choose to buy an Apollo, and I'm sure you'll enjoy using it. So until next time, I hope all of you have a great day. Bye-bye.